Hello, this is Henry, and this is What If We Get It Right, where our goal is to dream big and to think hard about the actions that we can learn from yesterday, we can take today, and hopefully make the future for tomorrow. If you want to get in touch with me or my guest today, please all of our links will be in the notes on wherever you're watching or listening. And commenting, sharing this type of content with your friends or people you know is probably the best and simplest way that you can promote and help support both of us. So we appreciate that. And without further ado, I've got Dathane on with us today. Dathane, thanks for coming on and being with us. To start off, can you give us maybe what some things you're known for or things that maybe you want to be known for in the future?
Oh, okay. Yes. And hello, everyone. It's wonderful to be here with Henry, uh, the man, my fellow compatriot on SolarPunk and Meta Nation. It's wonderful. It's wonderful. Yes. What am I known for? Well, I was a Buddhist priest for a number of years, and I just recently left the order to pursue how to foster well-being and harmony and happiness in a different way, to spread that word. So, but I'm bringing all of my learning, my um, contemplation, my vision to this new venture, which is creating a TV series uh, on the genre of solar punk. So
Wonderful.
it's definitely a it seems like my entire life has been building up to this moment. And it's a very at this point in my life, it's a very important embarkment that I'm about to go on, which will be great for others as well as very nourishing for myself.
Beautiful, beautiful. Okay, so a few terms there. Very cool about being a Buddhist priest. If
Yes.
can you maybe just elaborate on that a little bit?
Sure.
What was your what did that entail, and maybe what brought you there? And go a little deeper on that. That's very
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, yeah. In 1999, well, let me start like this. In the 90s, it was like what I want to do with my life. Don't know.
Okay.
I'm 50. Uh, Hopefully, you'll be surprised. I'm trying to take care of myself.
You did not look 50, so if anybody's just listening, I usually am on just video call or audio calls with you, and so this is the first time we've gotten to be face to face. And you definitely, I wouldn't have guessed 50. So
Yeah.
you're
Wonderful,
doing
wonderful.
good.
Thank you so much, sir. 90s was a traumatic, not traumatic. That's not the word for it. It was a depressing time because I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. Do I want to be a doctor? Do I want to be a lawyer? These things. I wanted a vocation that called me. And I remember when I was 23, really asking the universe, what do I want to do with my life? That's a calling, rather than just, when I reach, 90 years old, I'm going to my bed. I'm like, yeah, I was a advertising executive. Nothing wrong with that. There's people who find that fulfilling, but I guess that's what I fell into. But I wanted to do something more substantial. I did not want to reach my deathbed with that on my conscience, on my mind. So for me,
Hmm.
the 90s was about finding that. And it was depressing because I couldn't find what I wanted to pour my heart into
Hmm.
until I
Yeah.
saw the movie The Matrix.
Okay. All right.
And
It's a good movie.
indeed it is. It definitely profoundly changed my life. It gave me a hint about, because The Matrix has a lot of there's a lot of Buddhist themes in it.
Hmm. Yeah.
And it's a movie that's about transformation, inner transformation, and
Yeah.
those things kind of like hooked me to a direction of, wow, Buddhism, awakening, being awakening from the societal program, or awakening from the habitual desires that seems to be programmed into you. That seems to
Mm,
be something that's very interesting and I want to really delve into. So I began to read more about Buddhism. The more I read about it, the more I liked. I also read a lot about positive psychology. I read about Martin Siegelman and his work and starting this whole positive psychology movement. I have a master's
mm,
degree in psychology, and a lot of my um, my work, my research was in positive psychology. I was really drilling deeply into that, but
mm,
I really wanted to explore what does it mean to be awake? What does it mean to be to have this something which is within you that's existential dissatisfaction that you just like, is this it? And what's wrong with me? Why can't I find some peace? And so
mm.
when I began to read the Buddhist teachings, I was really impressed about someone 2,500 years ago who had these same thoughts, and he approached it like a practice rather than a religion. That for me was a very big draw for me in Buddhism. Rather than it being a religion, something, read it, believe it, have faith in it, and do it. The Buddhist like, no, you have critical reason, contemplate it, quiet your mind, and just observe and tell me what you see. That for me was like, because I've been in the religious realm for much of my life, Catholicism, Christianity,
Mhm.
and just to make a long story short on that, this faith, it's in the Bible, believe it, have faith in it, and the
Mhm.
answers will come, in the afterlife. I really don't like that. No, I want to
I
understand.
also
Go ahead,
grew
go
up
ahead, go
with
ahead.
that type of foundation, so I've got you.
So that's what drew me to but then I wanted to find a place to go to school at, and I checked out some Zen places. I'm like, well, Zen is nice. That's a great place, a great tradition.
Mhm, mhm.
But I found this place in Philadelphia, the Wan Buddhism temple, and I went in there, and I'll tell you, if I may make a comparison, uh it's like they're like the Southern Baptists of Buddhism. They're you go in there,
Okay.
they're like, hey, what's going on? And let's go out for dinner, and well, we want to practice, and it's very open and engaging and personal. So I'm,
Neat.
I'm thinking
Okay.
this is cool. And then I began to say, well, let me see what these guys are reading. And when I read the book, their scriptures, by the founder, Master Sotasan. His name is Master Sotasan. I was just floored by how it's so modernly focused. Like for example, in the first chapter of it, he talks about and this is back in when he was like 1919. This is when he founded the order. When it was like poverty all around him, and he had no technology in his experience, but yet he had this insight that technological advancement is overcoming or overshadowing or burdening spiritual advancement, and there needs to be a balance of the two, and they need to grow in harmony together in order to bring about a better world. This is like
Sure.
in the first chapter. And so when
Mm.
I read that and read other things about it, I was like, "This is it. This is the bomb," and it is the
Yeah.
bomb, and I still feel it's the bomb.
Okay.
Yeah, so that led me to one become a teacher of Won Buddhism. Won means circle
Okay.
in Korean. Circle Buddhism, you can call it, and it and from there I got my master's degree in Won Buddhism and was a teaching for like 4 years, teaching Tai Chi, yoga. I led a lot of retreats, and it was nice. It was a wonderful experience. I just, but then there's of course, as I began to learn more about Won Buddhism, there's some things about it that kind of I didn't like about it, because I really am a person that really likes the traditional Buddhist teaching, and Won
Mm.
Buddhism has
Okay.
a tendency of being a bit religious. So
Okay.
I said, guys, I'm gonna segue out, and get to more about what the Buddha taught. But I'll inform what the Buddha taught by these we'll call it advancements that this particular tradition talked about, which I think are great advancements in the practice. So I left
Okay.
Won Buddhism and began to think about, well, what I'm going to do. And then the coronavirus hit. That's
Okay.
2019 November is when I left. So back what January and February is when the coronavirus hit. So I was thinking about teaching yoga and Tai Chi. Then that thing happened, and it happened over 2 years, and it's like, well, I can't do that. They're closing everything out, closing everything down.
Yeah.
So I began to say, well, let me write, and that led me to writing. So boom, done. Hopefully, I didn't talk too much.
No, no, you're completely fine. I asked the question. So actually, that leads perfectly into the other term that you had mentioned was solar punk. It's definitely becoming a theme on my podcast because a few of the people that I've talked to have definitely been involved very heavily in solar punk movement, and it's very in line because that definitely is a term that I've found a lot of cohesion with, and a lot of I found a lot of people in this movement that are definitely thinking very similarly about building a better future, actively taking actions that and making decisions that are trying to move us towards this type of a future that is sustainable, that is green, that is beneficial to having humans be healthy in our lives in all aspects in a holistic way and so forth. So that's a little bit of my explanation of what solar punk is. Well, for you, how did you come into this sort of idea of solar punk? What does
Mm-hmm.
it mean for you a little bit from based on what you were just talking about, like coming from like this sort of
Yeah.
finding meaning and purpose in the practice of
Mm-hmm.
Buddhism
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
wanting to teach and share that with others, but then also wanting to go a little bit more deeper, being critical about the thought process, and then moving towards a solar punk writing type of teaching
Mm-hmm.
aspect. Go into that for us a little bit.
Yeah, that's a great question. Because it's definitely a journey. Uh, and it roots back into. I remember, for example, a story. Master Soda-san, the founder, talks about in one of his writings. He talks about in the future there'll be people who will live underground so that they will keep the upper area pristine. So rather than travel in the upper area, they'll be living underground, not underground as in deep underground, but under the surface per se. So that when
Mm,
they come out, they'll come out into a pristine park.
mm,
And so it's like I say, he's thinking about this in 1919. So um but the interesting thing for me, how can I say this? This is interesting. It's very deep and interesting question you asked. There is a motto that he calls it a koan. It's more like a transmission verse in Zen Buddhism. When a teacher's about to leave, about to die, for example, he will take one of his students and bring him in a secret, give him the transmission verse that kind of sums up his entire awakening. And
mm,
so that now the student will be at the same level, exact same level as the teacher when the student is ready.
mm,
And it takes many years to do this. So Master Soda-san, he developed his own transmission verse, but he gave it to the world, and it goes something like this: um, being into non-being, non-being to being, turning and turning in the ultimate. Being and non-being are both void, yet this void is complete. It's one of those deep, profound. A lot of transmission verses are like that, so you have to kind of
mm,
like think about that. But where it hit with me was when I thought about our scientific practice, and this is where we get into the solar punk thing and
mm-hmm.
where I'm coming from with it. When we talk
Yeah.
about our scientific practice, it's a practice that recently has been found to be uh, as Kurt Gödel would say, the rational system is incomplete as far as being able to determine how to move from a problem from point A to point C. Usually some problems are like point A, point B, point C, and it's very straightforward. Like
Mm-hmm.
algebra. So, but there are other problems. You go from point A to point B and you're stuck. There is no logical way forward. So he talks about mathematical intuition, where you go within and you just stop running the same old knowledges that you tried to use before, but just observe. And something in that depth of silence or stillness is a creative leap. It's a non-rational leap forward where now you know the direction to go into. And so
Okay.
yeah, and so me myself, I began to, I've been contemplating this for years. I should say decades, but years. And this other aspect I'm thinking about, which really ties into Buddhism, this practice of stilling the mind, of cultivating wisdom, of cultivating skillful habits, which really Buddhism in a nutshell. That's what Buddhism is about. It's about these
Mm,
practices that cultivate stillness, that tries to cultivate wisdom and cultivate good habits. And for those
mm,
to come synchronous together, where you start to move in life in a more mature and wise way.
mm,
So while scientific practice has this great way of exploring the external world, it's unparalleled of how it explores the external world. There's nothing like it. There
mm.
should be an inner practice that helps you to explore and to break down your biases, your prejudices, your the way you cling to things, your greed,
Yeah.
your maybe unconscious hatred, your tendency of being selfish. Buddhism is all about that. So I'm thinking that that needs to be a part of the scientific practice, the external
Mm,
practice and internal practice, connected together in a reciprocal fashion. And for me, solar punk, the way I envision it is like this is the mature way of scientific practice. And I think
okay.
solar punk from the outside in, people are seeing how you need to have harmony with the nature. Technology and nature need to be harmonious. They need to be balanced. And it's moving us towards how do we for example not having such a knee-jerk reaction to binary ways of seeing gender, for example. Rather than automatically saying, oh yeah, female, male, you just automatically follow that. You have to have a practice that shows those biases. So, and this is
Mm,
great for scientists too, because they have biases. Some biases they don't even know have egos. They're holding on to their theories by dear life. I'm not going to never, when actually science is about dwelling in truth, dwelling in emptiness, dwelling in voidness. Hopefully, this conversation is coming back around. Why I say voidness, being into non-being, non-being to being. So what I'm thinking is that solar punk is this kind of manifestation of a wiser way of living, which this practice, this inner practice and outer practice, can help together. So my TV show is about exploring that. It's about exploring this new type of practice and also
mm.
battling these ideological and tribal conflicts that eventually will help mankind see itself and mature beyond them. Whew, sorry.
Dude, I love it. I love it. I, I that's one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on, is because I felt like you had a lot of information and thoughts and ideas that were really valuable. And I could tell when we had a previous conversation that you really had a lot of information. And obviously, you're writing a book, so you're accumulating or I'm sorry, a book. I'm sorry, a TV show. What am I thinking? But
I did write a book, but that's
you're
fine. Yeah,
writing,
a TV show too.
you're writing, and you're putting out these ideas and thoughts in a story fashion. And by doing that, you have to, by necessity, accumulate so many ideas, and you have to think through so many ways of how you're going to create this whole uh, universe or way of thinking, a way
Mm-hmm.
that people are interacting within a different type of reality than where we're at right today
Mm-hmm.
in some aspects, but also in the other aspects, maybe a lot of similar ways that we're acting today. And so I
Mm-hmm.
really like how you're working on trying to bring together this idea of being scientific, thinking through the process in a scientific method. You could even say, like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
what we're going to prove that these things either are true or not true based on the reactions that we're consistently receiving based on what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same way, there's a real sense in our own lives that
Mm-hmm.
there's this way in which we can get to answers in our own lives if we are consistently asking the right questions, if we're consistently practicing being able to quiet our minds to see what's really out there. Maybe
Yeah.
a little was a way of saying it. So
Hmm.
very cool. Okay, so bringing us to the show, this is something that you are actively working on. Tell us a little bit about this and like what, uh, whatever you want to share about it.
Yeah, yeah,
What are
no.
you open to sharing, and tell us, what you're creating.
Yes, yes, yes. Wow, that's the thing. Yes. So the premise, yes. Well, the log line is if I say it in one sentence, it would be, despite, I think I said this already, despite ideological conflicts and tribal conflicts that are occurring in this future time, 2500, we'll say,
Okay.
year. Um, Despite these conflicts and strife, there is a house. We would think about terms of houses. There's a house that wants to explore how to change the world, try how to restore the world, the world back to its more habitable state, because uh, 70% of the world, uh, after the as which has in my series, in my universe, I guess you could say,
Sure.
after the climate apocalypse, 70% of the world has been destroyed. But there are this, and there are, the mainstream wants to do this, but there are these different pulling groups and differing ideologies and struggles about of power struggles that's causing it to come to ever slow to a halt towards progress. And so there's this main
Okay.
character in the story that wants to honor differences, but create a tribe that is interconnected, interdependent type of a way of pulling different imaginations together, so that a breakthrough can occur. And he feels that the only way a breakthrough can occur is when everybody pulls in and does
Mm.
it.
Works
And
together.
it works together. Yes. Right
Okay.
now, some people are working on the problem. Some people are working on ways in which they want to take over the world, things like this. But he feels that if we, and while this is going on, there is this increasing heat that's going on in the world, and there's this impending doom, I guess you can say, that he's like, okay, guys, we need to get, because there's all these different solar punk cities that's all over the world, and so they got this. It's almost like, yeah, we got it. We became wiser after this turn of the
Mm.
climate apocalypse. But if we don't continue to go towards a breakthrough, this will only be an oasis of time before the world will completely envelop us. This destructive world completely envelop us. So we need to really get on the ball here, and that's what the series is about. It's a 5-season series about a man that brings the people together, becomes a house, and it expands to a tribe, and finally this tribe does become inter cooperative, and a breakthrough comes from it. And from that, people begin to become inspired, be like, okay, let's follow this way. And then this turns the entire world towards a solar punk utopia.
I
But
love it.
which is my, and I just want to say, just want to caveat that I've heard, and I think I said this during the and I like hear your point, your opinion about it as well.
Okay.
I heard that one of the issues with solar punk is that it's too rose colored,
Mm.
too pie in the sky. It talks about well, and not only that, but also, it's like conflict free. So it's like, okay, all it's going to be is an aesthetic, because you can't tell stories with no conflict. So so
What?
I'm trying to
Mm.
navigate that, where we're on the last leg of this, worldwide transformation, and we are getting in ourselves, well, we are getting in the way of ourselves,
Mm.
is what this last leg of final transformation. It's really inner transformation. Go ahead, what's your
No, I
Thank.
love it. I think as you've told me about your thesis and your storyline, it's very much representative or mirroring what we see even today.
That's why I
I,
did
and
it.
I would imagine it's very evergreen in the sense that even if you were to go back another 50 years or 100 years and present the same sort of story with maybe a few different words, it, it would be very similar to the situation they were in then too. And
Hmm.
I think that is indicative to our human experience. We tend to face similar challenges throughout time in little different ways. And
Hmm.
technology changes, languages change, maybe the scene and setting changes a little bit, but the storyline is still very similar to what it's replayed in the past.
Hmm.
And I think that it is a aspiration for many to try to eliminate conflict in our world. And I am in the camp of I think humans can achieve
Hmm.
a a a, a time and place in the world where we do eliminate most, if not all, of our conflicts. I
Hmm.
think it is still yet to be achieved, but I think we can get there. I think we're getting better at it.
Hmm.
If you look at some charts, I think they even show, poverty in a lot of senses has gone down over a century long.
Yeah.
If you look over the years and if you look over like how we are able to have extension of life just in general from where it was 100 years ago, and a number of other types of uh, I guess dynamics or data points in which you could take and track. I think humanity is learning better and better to work together to
Hmm.
solve the problems that we are all facing.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
We are not perfect at that yet. I
Of
would
course.
say we still
Yeah. Yeah.
have, hopefully, it doesn't
Millennia to
take,
go.
hopefully, it doesn't take till 20 or 2500. Hopefully, we
Really?
can do it a little sooner. I'm
Oh, that'll
I'm
be
I'm
great.
I'm hopeful, but I would really hope we could maybe get there maybe in a few more decades versus a few more centuries. But
Ah.
I tend to be leaning towards the optimistic side of things. So,
Mhm, 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 mhm,
but that is why we're here talking. The whole reason that I started this podcast was so that we could try to talk about big ideas that are utopic in basis, that or at least take the utopic end of these ideas and say, how can we start to work towards those types of goals? What are the actions we can take to create? You and I are talking about a world that's utopic or solar punk, where we are humans have put aside our disagreements and our prejudice and our egos, and we've learned to self-examine before reacting, and we've learned to work in harmony with nature to
mhm,
preserve and restore it to its pristine glory.
mhm.
Those, I think, are ideas that are worth talking more about, because if we don't have that vision, if we don't have that idea, if it's not clear for us, then it becomes very hard to take the right actions to get there.
Mm, mm, mm,
And I see so many dystopic stories in
mhm,
television and music and books, and that's great. They warn against places we maybe don't want to go, but with the warning against the places we don't want to go, I think there's the the opposite end of that coin is, or the reverse side of that coin is also valuable, which is where do we want to go then? And,
yes.
and maybe taking a little bit a step back to you personally, like
Mhm,
how did these sort of ideas of this utopian future or this future where catastrophe has struck. I think it's very similar to the world we're in today. I mean,
mhm,
lots of people are talking about uh, climate change or the changing of our environment based on the impacts that humans have had on the world, whether
mhm,
it's through pollution of various sorts. And if I'm understanding your storyline correct, it's these things have led to a catastrophe, even
mhm,
worse than maybe what we're thinking. And humans have bounced back a little bit, but they're still facing the same problems. And now, how are they going to solve those problems in the
Mm-hmm.
future?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, if we bring that back to now,
Mm-hmm.
what are some of the things that you're looking at and seeing as I want to form this question correctly for you.
Mm-hmm. And
You're look
honestly,
Oh yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah,
You're
yeah. Be
looking at
brutally
trying
honest.
to how can these characters in your story in the future solve these problems?
Mm-hmm. Yes,
But
and
at the
that's a
same
key point.
time,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, at the same point, those same solutions could be really valuable to how we now take action to solve our problems now. Uh,
Exactly.
How are you looking at
Wow.
and that is a
That
deep, big question.
and is the underlying theme motif of the entire series is that question. Whew, uh rephrase
And
that question.
maybe let me see it. That's sort of like a 90,000-foot question.
Yeah.
Let me see if I can break this down. How are you maybe taking action in your own life today
Hmm.
to be a little bit more solar punk? Maybe let's just go right down to the nitty gritty of like maybe some habits you have or some decisions you've made. And this is not to point down or look, or at anybody, but it's just
No.
we're all at different points in life and everybody has a different
Hmm.
inflow of information that has
Hmm.
helped them make the changes in their lives that they've come to. Where are you at in this aspect of learning?
Well, I mean, of course, I've said this in the space that we're in, the solar punk, meditation space, that I live in an intentional community that tries to compost, that of course embraces recycling,
Hmm.
uh, and so that's and it's great to be a part of this this community where I'm at. So that's helpful for me
Hmm.
to be like, okay, since behavior around me is doing that, I'm doing that. I'm it's easier for me to do that. So that's one aspect. And then in the other aspect is this getting back, and I need to get back to it's interesting. I've been a for many years a contemplative, and it helps me to which I think is also very much solar punk, I feel, and a solar punk aspect of it, uh, is to be more investigative rather than reactive,
Hmm.
um, because it's like we have all these various innovations coming. We were just talking about the nuclear innovation that came, nuclear fusion innovation
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
came, which is great. So it's like we have all these tools. So why aren't we making these decisions? And I feel that we have a tendency of reacting to past habits, past societal habits. So me myself, getting back to just like as I go outside, you know, walking meditation, as I'm washing a dish, washing meditation, as I'm showering meditation. Getting back to these these three practices of stilling and then cultivating wisdom, looking at the reality of life, and how things you once hold will pass away, how there is, as the Buddha would say, there is inherently in our existence gain and loss, pleasure and pain, fame and disrepute, um, and how do we navigate those in a wise way?
Hmm.
It's for me, it's like those need to be addressed, which is just as important. I call it the yin of solar punk, just as the sustainability and the recycling and all these great practices that promotes harmony with the nature, the yang of solar punk. So we
Mm,
talk about a lot of the yang of solar punk, which is great, but we need to talk about more of the yin of solar punk because they're both interrelated, like the Tao. That's why on
mm,
my you'll see on my whatchamacallit, my World of Tomorrow, you see the Tao symbol. And that for me is a very potent symbol. That for me is the is if we do not address the inner issues, then we will continue to get our own way of making these wise decisions towards a better planet.
mm. And you had just mentioned like different types of meditation. Can you
Mhm,
break that down a little bit more? I definitely feel like meditation is something that I've meditated for many years, and it's something I
mhm,
do daily. It's very integral and part of who and how I think. And I have my ways of meditating that I've picked up through practice and working with and learning from others. But you had mentioned sort of doing the dishes and showering and
mhm,
walking and these different types of meditation. Can you go a little bit more into depth on that? Like for people who maybe have never even heard of meditation,
mhm.
being a Buddhist, I'm sorry, a monk it was, or a
Well,
Buddhist
we can say
teacher,
priest,
maybe
priest.
priest. Okay, I wanted to make sure I was using the right term for you there. But
Mhm.
that related with like meditation, what does that meditation look like for you? What's maybe the goal? What does that look like?
Yeah, that's a really great question. It's one of the big three that's so important and needed. Um, According to Gautama, I would say Gautama, this dude, and I like to use that term, dude, rather than saint or mythical figure or godlike. No, just a dude that had a great idea. That's how we'll say it.
Hopefully, that's
There's
how I'm
this
remembered in the
there's this
future. Some dude had a great idea. That's how I want to be remembered. Legacy goals. So, sorry, go ahead.
this dude that had a great idea. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Um, the key point of meditation practice from the time I've been learning meditation practice, you hear about this idea of calming the mind when you're agitated.
Mm,
And that is an important aspect of meditation practice. Uh, and then one would say that is an aspect, a good aspect, but a deeper aspect of it is the ability to bring yourself back to calmness regardless of the situation, and it doesn't have to be with the breath. We use the breath as a very good one. We carry
hmm
it with you everywhere we go. And if you're
hmm
sitting, you're not doing anything, then focusing on the breath, coming back to the breath again and again, feeling the cool air going in through the nostrils, feeling your belly expand, belly, softens, the warm air comes out the nostrils, getting that really sensorial, tactile experience in the
mm,
body is a great way of remembering when you're engaging in such a traumatic or angry situation, because this it's all about habit. It's about developing a habit. I
mm,
remember here's a perfect example, and I've taught this when I gave a lecture on this for meditation practice. I remember when my mother had a car that she wanted me to take to the shop, and um as I came to the light, the brake would not brake. Actually,
Oh boy.
the gas pedal went to the floor.
Oh wow.
And if I had actually, I should say, let me rephrase that. I had to hold on to the brake. This is what happened. I had to hold on to the brake in order to not to fly through into traffic. If I took my
Okay.
foot off the brake, the car would speed, at high revs right into something. So here I
Okay.
am, the car is shaking, and my both feet are on the brake, and I remember distinctly breathing in, breathing out.
Mm,
And in that space, something happened, which is what's happening right now. Are you in a
mm,
crash? Are you is the car flipped over from going into another vehicle? No. Okay. So I'm still okay. All right.
mm.
So when the light turned green, I eased my foot off the brake a little bit, and the car lurching forward, and I went around, went to the dealer, the garage, I should say, car garage. And I remember, taking the foot off the brake and shutting off the car, and I was
Okay.
safe. So I would say that meditation, and this is not. If I panicked, I would have had an accident. If I, oh my
Mm,
God, and just totally just went out of control, I would have had an accident. So this
sure.
idea of meditation is to habitually get your mind and your body being able to come back. And it's like muscle memory
Mm,
coming back again and again. It's very different than like physical exercise. Physical exercise, the way you get strong is by engaging gravity.
mhm, mhm.
But for inner strength, it's the complete opposite. The way you get strong mentally is to disengage again and again, reps again and again. It's about consistency, disengaging again and again. And once you begin to make that a habit, then you'll find yourself waking up when you're being, someone screaming at you rather than reacting back. You wake up, you're like, I don't have to react like that. Now you move from a reaction to investigation.
Yeah.
So that becomes a real wonderful aspect of meditation practice. And so it's helpful. And so you can do it anywhere and any time, obviously. You can, it's all about, what am I doing right now? What am I feeling right now? You're in the shower. That could be a meditation practice. Feeling rather than just hopping in the shower, jumping out. It's no, let me go ahead. You're gonna say something.
Oh no, I wanted to clarify what you were saying. So it's sort of depending on the action that you're taking, it's just sort of learning to observe or focus on what
And
is actually happening.
exactly, yeah, and be with that action. Yes, what is actually
Okay.
happening and being with that action. If you're wiping the dishes, then wipe the dishes. If you're
Mm,
walking, feel the earth on your feet. If you're, whatever you're doing, be with what you're doing rather than being with it, yet your mind being at 10 different other places. You know,
mm,
and it's great actually,
right.
and it's great especially for a creative like me. It's great mentally to be like that because that's when the ideas come. If my mind is always churning, then that kind of chaotic, I call it like chaos ordered space, chaos order
Mm,
type of space, which is always on engagement as it's that self-organizing, has nowhere for its creative kind of inlet to go in because my mind is already occupied. But if I'm just like, quiet and just, being with what's going on, then this chaotic reality has a tendency of sprinkling in these insights, as I'm
mm.
washing the dishes, as I'm, driving the car. And it's like, oh, wow, that's a great idea for a TV show. Happens to me all the time, especially when I wake up from sleep. Always
Okay.
happens.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm a big, of course, you can imagine, I'm a big fan of meditation.
Yeah, no, I love it. I like how you were explaining that, and I wanted to ask a few questions
Yeah.
about the sort of get that a little bit clearer because it's also something that I'm very active in, and I think the point you mentioned is really also how what I would consider like I even say it's like a superpower. The
Mm,
superpower that meditation allows you to work on having is the ability the, the second delay between something happening to you and you taking 2 seconds before you react to say how do I want to react,
so it's everything. It's
and
everything.
it changes everything because all of a sudden you don't have to take something personally. All of a sudden
Exactly.
you don't have to be you can getting angry or being upset or being scared or all of these things are all decisions we make based on what is happening to us, which is
Hmm.
out of our control. But the
Yeah.
decision we make is in our control. And
Hmm.
so many times that happens just out of habit, where
Hmm.
if you can create the habit to stop and to observe, all of a sudden you have a superpower.
And it's a life. And trust me, I'm not. I wish I was like Gautama, who's like, like the master of it. I'm just a guy that wakes up from time to time, and be like, oh yeah, I can handle that differently. But at least, but I will say that where I am now in life is vastly different from where I was 20 years ago. 20
Yeah.
years ago, I was there was an issue of defectiveness within me, self worth,
Mm,
because I lived in a single home. I was born in the projects, kind of like a low income housing. There's a lot of
mm,
issues of self worth with me, and I carried that throughout my life. And Buddhism definitely assisted me in really investigating those karmic habitual thought patterns about where they come from, and do you have to jump on board? Are they
mm,
really true and real? you
Yeah.
know. So I would definitely say that, although I'm still, tripping over things, and oh man, I forgot the trash, I'm definitely not perfect, and definitely miss meditation from time to time, unfortunately. Sometimes I get too much into a story. I'm like, I can't stop. But I will say that but it's definitely something which I'm always in my mind thinking, okay, I need to definitely do a meditation practice because it's so wonderful, and get back to a practice like that, which is so wonderful. So I definitely sway. I just need to become consistent, which is really great to have a community that does it. That's like the Buddha talks about the three treasures: him himself, the teaching,
Mm,
the Dharma, as you would call it, and the community. It's a treasure. And that's one thing I don't have around me is a community. That's why my wife, who's also a Buddhist, we're going to create this going to have, we'll go into his apartment, and, we'll have our bedrooms and so forth. But the living room is going to be a meditation space. I'm going to try to invite people over to meditate, because having people to meditate with, and to know that, oh, these people are coming over to meditate, it just helps
mm.
me to, like, okay, it's time to meditate. It's time to make this thing happen.
Yeah.
So yeah. But I definitely, and I'm glad you're a person that meditates as well, because it kind of it helps me to, like, yeah, and let me get deeply back into that because it's great.
Yeah, we might have to chat after this. Maybe I was thinking it would be really cool to get involved with, like, maybe some of the DAOs or the communities that we've actually met through, like maybe West DAO or something along those lines. Would be interested in opening up like a channel for doing like a daily meditation
Oh, that would be
or maybe
great.
a weekly meditation, and
That'd be great.
just not only inviting the community that we have around us physically, but also our community that we have digitally around the world can also connect, which is nice because you can find more people that have similar
Hmm.
uh, goals in
Hmm.
life that way.
Yeah,
So
and it helps, and for me, this it's a needed conversation to include this other yin, as I say, yin perspective of solar punk. This yin perspective is underrepresented, I feel, and I
mm,
think it's very, very much, if we really want to engage it in a way in which it will become manifested. We need that inner transformation to occur that complements the outer transformation that we want to do.
yeah. Yeah, you can't just change one without the other. They both need to be changing simultaneously. They need to
Hmm.
both be growing simultaneously, or one will be having a hindrance effect on the other. So,
Hmm. Hmm.
in that same aspect, maybe do you have any other habits or things that you find are helpful to you in life, to like sort of think or work through these types of projects? Like, are there any other types of habits that you do regularly that you found to be beneficial in your life?
What and specifically with solar punk, like in navigating the solar punk,
It
or
doesn't
just
have
in
to be
general, like
necessarily
wellness.
solar punk. Yeah, sort of the this wellness or this. You've mentioned a few times now the idea of uh, there's the physical scientific, wanting to take solar and energy and create a world that is in harmony with nature, but at
Hmm.
the same time we just mentioned there's also this inner self that needs to grow and learn, and meditation can be a part of that growing process. Is there other aspects that maybe help you in life to help consistently produce growing experiences?
Yes, that's a really great, that's a good
And
question. Go ahead.
I could give an example in my life. I know that the food that I eat is one
Ah.
of those things. Like what I'm putting into my body, and it could be food, it could also be what I'm reading or listening to. The inputs that I have, the people around me
Hmm.
are very, those types of things have a lot of impact on the outputs that I have.
And that's so true. That's so true. And actually, and I really, it was one time I was like very much trying to explore veganism and was digging it, but the community I was with, the Korean community, they're all about meat. So after a
Yeah.
while, and they would try to accommodate me, and but after a while, I said I just can't do it anymore. So Yeah. See, that's really great. And so, which I'll say, I'll say this before I answer that. That's why I'm very much into people in this solar punk meditation to have a physical space so that there could be a space, a physical
Hmm.
space where if people are cooking vegan food around me, I will eat vegan food till death.
Hmm.
you know so and so it's and so but yeah, but I wish my diet is not one of them. I need to really change my diet, and
Hmm.
so that would be really great, and I really want to do that. Me listen to the wisdom part about it is listening to podcasts, listening to teachers talk about the Dharma, has been a really helpful way to kind of contemplate these ideas, and try to infuse them in a way that is, how can I say, uh, a practice in which, by engaging the practice, seeing the results in real time is the way I kind of phrase it. One for example, here's
Hmm.
here's one example. And I remember when I was reading about this idea of being asleep, uh, being asleep versus being awake, awakening versus being asleep, and I'm thinking, what does that really mean?
Hmm.
Um, and I remember walking with another teacher. We was walking down the street, and there was this big pile of dog poop right in the pavement. Now I saw it, and I was wondering if this person saw it, because they weren't wavering they weren't like moving to the side. It was just kept walking, and it's clear as day, clear right in front of you, but you just don't see it.
Hmm.
And then just when she was about to come on to the poop, I says, "Watch the poop." And we both laugh, but I tell you, it was like a wake up call, a ding, like, oh wow, this stuff is real.
Hmm.
These ideas of why there's issues, corruption in governments, and it goes down to these very very, it seems to me, somewhat uh, simple but very pervasive issues of not really asking yourself, what am I doing. I think that's one of the things that for me I do that's helpful is I go through an inner dialogue about what am I doing, and is it beneficial? You
Hmm.
know,
Okay.
yeah, that's one of the things that I do from, yeah, and when I take a walk around, or when I'm doing something, what am I doing, and is it beneficial? Yeah, so that
Hmm.
that that becomes a constant kind of conversation, uh, that helps me to think about what I'm doing, basically.
Sure. So
Yeah.
it's sort of like a self-analyzation of, like, is that every single thing that you're doing, or do you have
No,
sort of,
no.
there's a term, I forget the right term, but it's sort of like you make one decision that then allows you to
Mhm.
act accordingly based on many different scenarios.
Mhm, mhm.
Is it that for you? Like, so you like sort of look at, like, okay, I don't want to kill somebody, and so therefore I am going to take X, Y, and Z. I'm going to, not drive drunk. I'm not going to just shoot guns randomly in the street, or I'm not going to, whatever it may be, types of actions, because my one of my goals, or in life, is to not hurt other people or something along those lines.
Mhm, mhm.
Is that how you look at that, or is it a
It
little
sounds
bit
it sounds
different?
very investigative. It sounds like you're investigating different alternatives than taking the actions that you've done, which created the negative consequences that occurred, and keeps on the negative consequences again and again. So rather than taking that action, which the consequence is going to come, as you
Hmm.
say, you stop, you look at different choices. Yeah, that's definitely
Okay. Okay. So
that's,
it's learning from those actions and the feedback that you've gotten, and saying, okay, do I want that to continue in my life, or do I want a different outcome? And so maybe I need to do what Einstein says, and stop taking the same actions.
Yeah, exactly, exactly,
It's just,
exactly.
yeah,
Yeah,
I think the
yeah,
quote's something along the lines of like uh, crazy is literally doing the same action over again, expecting different results.
exactly, exactly. That's true. That's true.
Okay.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
So as we like as
Oh, I
we're
have one
talking
more
about like,
thing.
go ahead, please.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
don't let
this
me
is
cut you off.
no problem, no problem. I think this for me is very important. Maybe something that uh I don't know about other people, but it's been a real treasure for me. Um, when it comes to picking a mate,
Hmm.
um, picking a mate and having where you guys want to create a spiritual practice together, for me was life changing. And because, as I said, it's hard to do it alone. So when you have a mate who is also along those lines as well, um, then you're creating your own little, as we would call, own little sangha. And so I, the person I found was on Dharma Match. It's a Buddhist
Okay.
single site, and she's from Nigeria. Not a lot of people in Nigeria are Buddhists, but she is, and she was trying to
Okay.
find another Buddhist. So, and so now we ourselves we talk about Dharma practice. We read scriptures. And now she's poking me like, when are we going to go back to meditating together? Ma'am, you're absolutely right, because she
Like,
digged that, and I digged it too. So having someone in your life that's like that, and I think we don't do that. We have a tendency of looking at the surface,
hmm.
at the box, but we don't look inside. We take what's outside to be important, but more what's inside. And so that is it's helpful as far as creating a trajectory of well-being, to have someone in your life that also wants that as well.
Yeah.
So that
It's
would be
that community. It's the tightest community that you can form is like the bond between one other person and yourself. Uh,
exactly,
so it's like a micro community that you can grow from.
exactly.
Hmm. That's really awesome. I tend to be
Oh yeah.
personally a little bit more of a solo type person. I
Hmm.
like being by myself a lot. And
Hmm.
I'm not introvert because I love talking with other people, but I find that a lot of times I like to just do things myself, by myself, in my way. But
Okay.
yet, like what you're saying, having that person or group that you can have around you
Hmm.
that are thinking about similar things or even different things, but that
Hmm.
idea of pushing you and either to continue doing what you want to do or
Hmm.
to push you to learn or grow more is sort of like the people around you have an impact on you.
Yes.
It's and so choose the people that are around you very carefully.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And
So,
Buddha talks about that too. He talks about, the wise person is one who chooses their friends wisely,
mm,
because if you don't, then you pick up their habits and you start following their tendencies, and all of a sudden you're going down their path. So yeah, yeah, he talks about that. So yes, and then not just, and like you said, it's more than just finding a mate. It's finding a group. It's finding a best friend. It's finding where you guys are can assist each other. I think that in and of itself is a practice in and of itself.
yeah.
And yeah.
No, yeah, I completely agree with you. It is not always easy. We sometimes we're placed in a place in the world where we might not physically find people that are quite aligned with us in the ways we want to be, which is really cool because we now live in a world where we have digital and we can connect with people. I'm in a completely different continent than you're at
Yeah,
currently, and
exactly. In
which is
Chile.
really awesome. Yeah, in Chile. Yeah, exactly. And so it's really neat to find community in untraditional ways that have not always been available to us as humans, and that's really awesome. Okay,
Mhm.
is there anything more? Anything other like things that you've found to be particularly helpful in your day to day, or in the way that you're thinking about growing as a human, as you're sort of putting all of these pieces together as we've been talking?
Um, I think that's because um yeah, I think that's about this new transition that I'm in my life is just taking up a lot of time.
Hmm.
So getting into good writing habits, and getting into something which is has a synchronicity, or should I say that maybe that's not the right word. It's it's mutually beneficial for me and for others. Making that decision, conscious decision, which is why I want to engage in the solar punk genre, because it's reciprocally beneficial, not just for me but for others.
Hmm.
So making that, and I do, and that's once again a tendency in the tradition I was in, called let's again Wan Buddhism, where the constant contemplation is how what can I do that is mutually beneficial. That's a
Hmm.
constant refrain in Wan Buddhism. And
Hmm.
so that's what was, which is why when I came across SolarPunk, I thought it was such a great idea. So getting into so now me getting into I need to get into a writing practice. That's really great. Also need to get, I have my whatchamacallit here, my exercise bike. Need to get into a bike fitness practice so I can
Yeah.
keep the body fit. Um, but yeah, and moving towards healthier food,
Hmm.
which is definitely important. So yeah, I think right now that's where, because I don't want to bite off too much more than I can chew. I want to get into a writing practice, have that be financially nourishing, and then expand from that to have my own uh, contemplative, space where people will come. Now that the writing practice is nourishing me more financially, as well as personally, and then
Hmm.
just expand more from that. I have this vision of a world. I call this TV series World of Tomorrow.
Hmm.
And one of the things that I would like to do is there's these various practices in World of Tomorrow. We talked about it. I think you probably saw on in our the West notes. What is it called? The West Repository of Information.
Hmm.
That
Hmm.
document that they have where they talked about digital democracy and deeper democracy and these various, of course, cryptocurrency. But these various practices, where I want to kind of include them in the show. And
Hmm.
then once people say, wow, I really want to um, really engage these things, these different types of practices that are like really cool. Well, which is why World of Tomorrow, my Discord site, is a role playing site where we can role play these. We can role play them as a character in this world, where you could become a character in this world and role play them. So that once role playing them mentally, then it's like you're getting the education of how to do them. And then you can bring that role play. You can bring that into your daily life, which is what but I mean, not to be self-deprecating, but I mean, I'm a big D&D nerd since 15.
I don't think that's self-deprecating at all. That's
Okay,
that's
great.
that's awesome. Yeah, no, no.
Not
There's a
anymore.
lot of
Not
people that are in
anymore.
that. Yeah, maybe at one point that was the nerdy thing to do, but
Exactly.
I think really you just have a great imagination,
Yeah.
which which is what the world needs today, is people with great imaginations to be able to think about, okay, how can we foresee the future looking, and what are the right decisions that we should be taking before they
hmm
actually happen.
Indeed,
And
indeed, indeed. Yeah, yeah. And that'll be
mm,
something. The maybe the last thing to talk about is um how engaging in a role playing setting, creating character and role playing is a way to learn, is a
yeah,
way to
yeah,
to do solar punk in a mental
yeah,
space so that you can bring into your physical world. You know.
100%. 100%. When I was younger, you had mentioned sort of growing up in sort of a religious type family. My family had this way of like, they're like, anything you watch is indoctrinating you. Any
Mm,
TV show, any music you watch, anything like that. And so from when I was like a little teeny kid, my parents would teach me like everything you need to do needs to be looked at critically, because you need to figure out what they're trying to push on you, and then you need to know what you believe. And
wow.
it can be, that can be that can be a double-edged sword in one aspect, because it can make you very skeptical and critical of things, but on the other hand, it can also, everything that you're taking in, you learn to look at with a little bit of a critical eye to say, hey, how valuable and what type of value can I take out of this? And that can be really really a valuable lesson, because then as you continue, you start to see patterns in life, and then you
Mm,
start to say, okay, well, these are my core beliefs and the things that I am wanting to see happen, and so I'm going to take these types of actions, I'm going to be involved in different things. And one of the things you had mentioned, you said you listened to like some podcasts and so forth. That is one of the questions I wanted to ask you, was sort of, is there any like particular podcasts, books, artists of any sort that you would be like, hey, you've mentioned a few different things as we've been talking, but is there anything that like particularly, and you can give a book, or you can give a book and a TV show and a movie and what podcast, whatever you want, but is there anything that you found to be like really good points of value add to you, either currently or in the past?
um. Yeah. Wow. Hmm. There is a someone who deeply influenced me. Josh Corda, part of Dharma Punk, the Dharma Punk kind of movement, and in New York City.
Okay.
He There was a guy named Noah Levine who was someone who in jail decided, his parents were Buddhists, but he kind of strayed from it, and found that the decisions that he made brought him to the penitentiary. And in the penitentiary, he's like, you know what, this whole thing about meditation, maybe let me think about that a little bit. Maybe my parents weren't all cuckoo. um
Yeah.
so it
Hmm.
began his journey of Buddhism, and it's not a out of sight interpretation. Actually, I think it's like a reconsideration of what has always been there as Buddha the rebel,
Hmm.
which he began to explore. And this is very much, and thinking about this reminds me of SolarPunk. Because SolarPunk there's that punk version in SolarPunk that is very much needed. Um,
Hmm.
and you can definitely say Buddha Punk can be definitely another aspect of Buddhism. It is like Buddha Punk. This idea, for example, of caste systems in India, totally against that, and that's like
Hmm.
revolutionary. You want to have women come into your sangha? You can't trust women. He says,
It
"Hey,
needs to be separated.
exactly." So,
Yeah.
so Josh Corda was a student under this guy named Noah Levine, and he has a podcast called Dharma Punk, which I think is very good, and it has a very scientifically based approach. It has a scientific perspective where he explores, how Buddhism and these various other modern practices in psychology and psychotherapy definitely play on each other, have different
Hmm.
areas of interest. For example, Buddhism is about what am I doing right now, what results are being produced, and how can I do those results. That's like kind of Buddhism's area of interest. Where psychotherapy is like, what have you done in the past, why are you doing it, and from that awareness of why you're doing it, maybe there's a realization that you don't have to do it, or that maybe what you've done is an incomplete understanding or something of that nature. So it's very content based. Buddhism is very behavioral results based in the present
Hmm.
moment. But psychotherapy has a tendency of being content historically based tendency.
Sure.
And
Sure. Yeah.
actually they definitely blend.
Sure.
But
Yeah. There's
psychotherapists
interconnection.
are definitely learning from Buddhism, and Buddhist masters are learning from psychotherapists all the time. So it's very much a wonderful we call it relationship that's going on in psychotherapy and Buddhism. So Josh Corda is in that space, and I find it to be very nice, a
Okay.
very nice
Awesome.
space. So yeah. Hmm.
Very cool. Anything else?
I see. The thing about me, I'm a big I watch a lot of movies. You know, I'm a big
Okay.
movie.
Okay.
I'm a screenwriter, so I gotta watch a lot of movies. And so,
Maybe what's maybe one or two or some of your favorites, things
oh,
that have had really big impacts or that you
uh,
just like.
they did that. Well, these movies definitely inform my, what I want to do, and the kind of movies I would like to make. Goodwill Hunting, for example, is a wonderful movie about how you can write something that is deep and has an inner voice, an inner movement towards a movement towards inner transformation, and yet is engaging. That's always been the thing. Is it so philosophical that it flies over people's heads? Then that doesn't work.
Hmm,
But if it's very engaging but has no depth, that doesn't interest me. The sweet spot
hmm,
is, can it be deep and can it engage? And so movies that fulfill both things are really great. Then
hmm.
there's documentaries, and you can find them on Netflix. The Secret Life of Chaos is a documentary that I watched hundreds of times.
Hmm.
BBC, uh, uh, a BBC production talking about the movement from uh, Newtonian mechanics of how looking at the universe as billiard balls and so forth, and how that is how, if you just had more computing power, you can figure out what the universe is going to do, and how recently they found that was just a pipe dream, that actually there's certain aspects of the universe that you can't predict, that they operate in ways that are unpredictable, that are emergent. And so this new science of chaos science is a big science now. And
Hmm.
seeing how, the universe has a self-organizing aspect, which informs my writing. The core aspect, one of the core philosophical things in my writing is this chaotic reality, how it's self-organizing. And rather than trying to figure out things all the time, you need to just to sit and see what comes up emergently from you.
Hmm. Hmm.
Secret Life of Chaos, High Anxiety, The Mathematics of Chaos, the Four Knowledges, another BBC production. So there's a lot of scientific. I watch a lot of scientific documentaries that are really
Very cool.
interesting, and yeah, and documentaries on Einstein, um, uh, Pablo Picasso, Washington. I like all these various. I'm a big biographer guy. I love biographies and how people lived and how it's done in film. It engages me.
Hmm.
And I do have a lot of books, but I'm not I have like 300 on my Kindle, 300 books, but I don't read a lot. I like watching.
Sure.
I decided to just say, you know what, I'm a watcher. I do read. There's a lot of books I have read, of course, obviously, but
Sure.
yeah, but I'm more for some reason, and
It
rather than
really
fighting,
connects with you,
I'm
the
gonna
visual.
yeah, I'm a visual guy, and that means I'm just embracing that. So if I'm going to be a visual guy, then it has to be deep visual.
Fair enough. I mean, we are moving into the world where everybody's talking about the metaverse and sort of this virtual reality of meshing of ideas and different communities and worlds and creating of whole genres online. So, I mean,
Hmm.
you're in the right time for that,
Oh
for
wow,
sure.
wow, wonderful, wonderful.
But no, I like the idea. I visually I tend to I'm dyslexic, and so
Hmm.
reading was always and has always been a huge challenge. And but thanks to like audiobooks and
Hmm.
or text to speech softwares out on my computer, I can just highlight and have somebody spit out all the information verbally, and if I can watch YouTube videos to learn something, then that is definitely that is where my bread and butter comes from. So I'm with you on that one. So I like that a lot. Well, okay, let's start to wrap this first conversation up,
Yeah.
and if we want to do a second round, maybe we can do that in the future. But um, is there anything that before we like completely sign off? Is there anything in particular that you want to bring people's attention back to over this conversation? Was there anything that like comes to mind that you're like, hey, you know, for anybody who's listening to this, this and this or this is definitely something that I'd want people to take away from this conversation.
Yes. Uh, for those who are interested in a more optimistic future, definitely get involved with the SolarPunk meditation. And engage and like JFK, I like JFK saying, it's not what your country can do for you, it's what you can do for your country. That's the way I'm approaching the soul punk meditation. It's not what they
Mm,
can do for me, it's how can I contribute to their vision, because I agree with
yeah,
their vision. And
yeah,
so
exactly. What's my part to play as a citizen in the new world?
yeah, exactly. And as this TV series comes out, which I personally think it's going to be a big hit. I don't want to be, biased, but maybe. But I really think it's going to be a big hit. And when it is, when it becomes, I feel, a big hit, and you want to engage it, click on the link, and think about, how to, me guiding you in role playing this world, and learning about these different philosophies and and sustainable technologies through storytelling role play as a way to engage. If those of you who are interested in that, definitely there is that avenue for you that I like to offer.
Very cool. Very cool. And we'll add those links into the notes as we said at the beginning of the podcast here as well. So, Dathan, I really appreciate you coming on. Thank you so much for sharing about your life and your journey to where you're at and some of the ideas and projects that you're working on for the future. Hopefully, it won't take another 200 or 300 years to solve some of these problems. Hopefully, we can make some drastic changes in the next, maybe even few years. Let's
Well,
let's
that'd be
let's be
great.
real optimistic about this. I want to see some
I'm
big
all for it.
changes now.
I
so
feel you. I feel you.
so
And thank you for inviting me into this space. This is a wonderful space. What you're doing is great. The title is amazing, and it's so, it's so wonderful that you're offering this, this kind of podcast to people. And I think more podcasts need to be like this. So I tip my hat off to you and for what you're doing and how the type of positivity that you're bringing, and the practical ways of trying to engage this movement is precious in this movement. So thank you so much, sir.
no, I thank you. I appreciate that. I want to try to take action now so we can all work together to take actions. That's the idea. Give people a vision to work towards. And like you said, everybody who hears this, everybody who is part of this movement or wants to be part of it has a part to play. It's not just a sit back and let somebody else do something type of. Uh, if we want the world to be how we want it to be in the future, we need to be taking action. So
True. Very true.
really appreciate your time. Like we said once or twice, all of our links will be in the show notes. So wherever you're watching this, if it's YouTube or Spotify or anywhere else, just click below and you'll be able to see how you can get in touch with Dathan, how you can get in touch with me. This has been What If We Get It Right?
If
This
you
is
get it right.
where we want you to be encouraged to dream big, to take action, to make the future for tomorrow. So thank you, everybody, and have
Thank
a
you.
wonderful
Yeah.
day.
All right. Thank you so much.